Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We have a unique, well, I'm not going to say panel today. It's not a panel, it's a two-man mission today. And
One-on-one.
One-on-one. And what the viewers can see is a new guest of ours on the podcast for Ramadan 2023. Did we have you last year on the podcast?
Yeah, twice I think, in Ramadan.
In Ramadan?
Yes, the
Okay.
last 10 days.
Oh, yeah. The
At the mosque.
inheritance ones that we did.
Inheritance one.
Yes,
that's
mashallah.
right.
So, that being said, I don't think I'm going to need to introduce him much, but I'd rather allow Hamad Bhai introduce himself. The president of MCM, Central Mosque Manchester, Victoria Park, also practices law. There's a lot to be said. Bags and bags of experience. Somebody I take lots of advice from and inspire from as well. So, for me, Amal Bhai, if you want to introduce yourself. So let's start. So people may not know your background. Where have you come from? I know you've done quite a bit in the time you've had, the different courses you've done. You've traveled quite a bit. Maybe if you want to share that with the public.
Okay, so Alhamdulillah, as you said, Hafsa, I practice law at the moment. I've been practicing now for 17 years. Prior to that, I studied pharmacy.
Okay.
Before coming into law, did a master's in pharmacy, worked in the pharmacy environment for about 2.5 years. And came to pharmacy through usual route of A-levels, GCSEs, high school, etc.
Okay.
And then prior to that, my primary and half of my secondary education was in Pakistan. I was born here, spent my childhood in Pakistan, came back here, and then went through the usual route of high school, college, etc.
Okay. How did this career change take place? So from pharmacy to law, quite a big jump, isn't it?
Yes, but I think it was, it just didn't suit my personality, I think. It was never satisfying. I didn't feel right. It was always I wanted to do something different. So I used to be part of the Young Pharmaceutical Society of the UK. Used to go to London for seminars.
Okay.
And the seminars usually used to take place quite close to the Old Bailey.
Okay.
So every opportunity I got, I used to sneak out and sit into trials and watch the trials, even back then.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very fascinated with the law and how you conducted everything in court. It just had a bit of an appeal for me.
Okay.
And I felt that I needed to have a change before I settled down, before I got married. And it was either going to be leave pharmacy, go into industrial pharmacy, which was very research orientated. So all the work was lab-based work. So I looked into that. Looked into doing PhD at university, and then I thought about law. Thought, okay, I could do law, and I found out that I could transition over into law by studying for 1 year.
That's the GDL.
The GDL route.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, this is good. I don't have to study for 3 years. I can study for 1 year.
It's quite intense, isn't it? The GDL.
It was.
It
was. I must admit, I didn't expect it to be as intense as it was. But I went to university, studied for a year. And I remember that 1 year, I literally divorced the world. I didn't go anywhere. I considered that was a personal jihad for me, that I had to succeed. There was no option of failure. It had to be done, and I had to succeed at it.
Okay.
And I studied, I don't think I've ever studied that hard in my life. And I think I used to study about 17 hours a day, every day.
That was 1 year. Effort.
1 year. And Alhamdulillah, it was worth it in the end.
Wow.
And then the LPC year started, and then I did the LPC and then started to work more or less straight away. So Alhamdulillah, it was challenging, but it was good. And I learned a lot about myself. I think the main thing was I learned about myself. I realized the strengths and weaknesses I had. I realized that it doesn't matter what you do, if you put your mind to it, it can be done. It's mind over matter. You've heard this again and again, mind over matter, mind over matter. And it really is mind over matter. If you really put yourself, give it your all, put 100% attention, you realize what you can do.
I mean, it's like the elders say, like when Insan wanted to get to the moon, it got to the moon.
Absolutely.
When Insan wants to change the direction of a river, it can change the direction. But where there's a will, there's a way.
Where there's a will, there's a way. And if a lot of that has to do with your qadar,
of course,
where you end up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it all comes from hard work and effort. And that works in all walks of life. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're studying ilm deen, and वो उर्दू में कहते हैं ना कि ढूंढने से खुदा भी मिल जाता है. So if you work hard enough, you look for something hard enough, you will get it. It doesn't matter what it is.
And I think it's moving on from the subject we've been discussing for the last few days. I don't know whether you've been following. We've had Sheikh Wasim. Yes. Before that, we had the chaplain of Manchester University discussing university life. Then with Sheikh Wasim, we started to go into details of challenges university students would face when they're applying for universities, when they get to universities. Then the challenge of finding halal food, masajid, imams, the fitna of atheism, which is ripe in universities. Ye sari baatein hui. Moving on from that, I think, let's suppose somebody's now graduated now. He's got the degree, graduation done. Now he's looking for work. Now it ties in really beautifully with the fact that you've had a background in pharmacy and you've had a background currently practicing in law. Any particular aspect of law that you specialize in for the viewers?
Yes, civil commercial litigation. Primarily, my 70% of my work is doing that. Probably about 20% family law, but I pick and choose the cases I want.
Okay.
And then I would say probably about 10% of inheritance, probate.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I pick and choose the cases I want.
So okay. So you got two backgrounds. In terms of work life, any common challenges that a student will find as a postgrad? He's just finished. Any advice or possibly what currently students are finding challenging? I know in this current climax, it's difficult finding jobs. Yes. Employers want a lot of experience. The demand is really high, which is another issue on its own. We've got so many graduates now and the same number of jobs in the market. What challenges do you see?
I think if I look back, I think it starts off from where you said you've got so many graduates.
Okay.
The quantity is there. I think employers look for substance in what they're getting. Mm-hmm. As employers, when we interview people, we look for substance. We look for what understanding have they got, what skill sets have they got. And it's not just about academic skill sets, but somebody's ability to apply what they've learned. There's always been competition. The legal profession has probably been more competitive than any other. The medical professions are relatively easier in comparison.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was transitioning over to law, my older brother's friends had studied law and were struggling to find jobs, and they were saying to me, "You're a nutcase, you should not transition over, you're in a settled profession, you're going to get a job quite easily, what's wrong with you?" And I always had a firm belief that I would land on my feet.
Yep.
I never had any hesitance in my thinking that maybe I will struggle. I never had that. I always had that belief that it would work out. And I think a lot of my friends who I studied with, and I am still in touch with them, they struggled for many years to find decent jobs. But what they did do is, whilst they were looking for the ideal job for them, whatever they found they did, they at least carried on working and doing something. They didn't sort of stay at home.
Something within the profession or outside the profession?
Even outside the profession.
Because I know, I've got a few friends. So when I was studying law, to what I understand, only a few from actually have gone into practice. The rest have had the degrees and then they've just walked away. They found it difficult to get into
the legal profession,
into the practice of it. And due to that, obviously, there's going to be pressure from family, start finding work and whatsoever. And when that's not happening, the motivation starts to drop and drop and drop. And then it's like, whatever comes your way, just grab whatever comes.
Well, as I said, I think I saw people, and I was very fortunate. I finished my education. Even before I got my LPC results, I had a job.
Okay.
So I was very, very fortunate. But there were a lot of people who were not in that position. They were struggling, but they did whatever they could to make ends meet. So they are not a liability on anybody. They carried themselves. And as soon as they found something, they left their jobs and went into the legal profession. But I think the lesson to learn from that is you should never give up. If this is your dream, or this is what you want to do, whatever it is,
I mean, if you're genuine in the pursuit for that profession, then you'll continue to try. I mean, I know a brother who just wasn't happening for him, and for quite a while he ended up working in a cash and carry, lifting boxes of bananas and apples and just put them on display. But alhamdulillah, when the time came, he got into the route that he wanted, got into that workplace, and alhamdulillah, he's doing well now.
So you should never give up. I think the first challenge as a graduate you would face is competition, yes. The application process that you go through, you may have many rejections, but that should never get you down. You should always think, this is not the right place for me. When the right place comes, I will get there. And I think that keeps your spirits up, and you should always keep yourself occupied with something. If you're sat at home, you're doing nothing, you're more likely to get into a depressive mood than not. So I think you should always keep yourself busy with something.
Another question then. How important is it for students to have experience? So whether it be in the medical field, the legal field, or let's say accounting, or whatever they're going to do, there's how much experience do you have? Have you done any summer vacations? Have you done any summer roles? Have you done something in the evenings? Or in legal practice, have you shadowed anybody? Have you been to the courts, shadowing a barrister? How many cases have you gone and attended?
It's very important. When I was studying pharmacy, I would work in a pharmacy during summer holidays. So even though I was studying at the time, over the summer holidays, I'd be working. I'd be earning some money for myself, but I'd be getting experience at the same time. Obviously, when I switched over to law, because I studied in 1 year, I did not have the exposure or the time to get any experience. But what I did do is, between my GDL and LPC, I had the summer holidays, and in those summer holidays, I continuously worked in a law firm. When the LPC started, it was again very intense. It's one of probably another very, very intense course. I did not work, but the work I had done actually assisted me in getting through the LPC. And I found that very useful. So one of the things we did, one of the electives I did was commercial litigation, and there's a lot of drafting of documentation. And because I'd had some experience with the law firm, where I had been asked to draft documentation, I think
it just
that
became a lot easy.
Yeah, you will develop a bit of confidence, and because you have that confidence, you carry that over. And once you get something right, you're told, yeah, this is right, and then you think, okay, I'm okay, and it just sort of translates into everything that you do from there.
So as an employer, when you're taking interviews, you're looking at CVs, how much precedence will you give to experience they've had?
Quite a bit. You look at...
Is it about how much they have, how much they've done, or is it, let's say they've done every summer, they've done something different, and overall you can see he's got quite a bit of experience in different sectors, different aspects?
I think every individual case, obviously, you weigh on the merits of the person you see in front of you. A lot of the times what you see on the CV is not what you get as a person. Sometimes you'll get a CV which is absolutely smashing, brilliant, and you think, yep, this is a very good candidate. When you actually speak to them, or you ask questions, or you put them to the test, you realize that actually, no, maybe not the right fit for us, maybe better fit for someone else. And on the other hand, sometimes you'll see people who have in their law degrees, for argument's sake, have achieved a 2.2, so they've not even got a 2.1, but they've got a wealth of experience in other things, and you think, okay, maybe academically this person did not peak at this time, or there could have been circumstances in their family or health which have affected their performance in their degree. So when you see people, I think obviously you get an impression from the CV of the person. And once you see the CV, I always ask people when they apply, I want to see a covering letter.
That's when they can really articulate themselves.
Yeah.
Put themselves in front of you.
And you get a flavor of the person from reading that. And you start to see their mindset in the way they've drafted that letter. You also get to know the person in terms of what have they done to get to know you before they walk through the door. Have they done any research on your organization? Do they know what you do? If somebody's made that effort, then you will probably spend more time with that person. So even when I was applying, every application I made, I thoroughly looked at the organization, their client base, what their turnover was, what the focus of the organization was. So I could...
But whether they actually have a genuine interest in yourself. Isn't that what you're looking for then?
You do. But like I said...
Then you'll have those students just applying anywhere and everywhere.
Sure.
And then they just rock up to an interview.
Yeah.
And then at the end of this, it's their own mistake, isn't it? They've not prepared for it. Let's suppose they've then been rejected by a few. And then the motivation just drops and drops and drops and drops.
Absolutely. And again, it's a technique. It's, like you study. Yes. Studying is a technique. Everybody has a different technique which works for them. In the same way, applications that you put forward for employment is a technique, how you fill them. Interviews are a technique. Your body language, you look at somebody in front of you, you look at the body language of that person. You look at what does that person represent, how do they carry themselves. Training you can give to people. It's a lot more than just training that you're looking for. You're looking for a personality which will fit into your organization.
Then you also have to look at whether he actually brings value to your company.
But again, sometimes you will see people who have a wealth of experience. They come and join you and they immediately add something, add value, as you've said. They add something to your organization. On the other hand, you may have someone who has a smashing personality, brilliant personality, and you think, okay, this is a really good fit. This person is the right fit, but they don't have the experience. And you think, okay, I can give them that experience. Now, if I can give them that experience, I can give them that confidence in themselves, because that personality fit is right, they will add value. Maybe not immediately, maybe in a year, maybe in 2 years, but you look at then the bigger picture and you view everybody. I suppose in the long run,
you see whether you can nurture him to become an asset for that company, for your company, and see where his future lies with yours.
Absolutely. And a lot of the times when you ask people, where do you see yourself? So I ask a question normally, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I've done that to so many kids now.
Yeah, and you will immediately see the reaction. Either they'll be dumbfounded, they will not know what to say, or they will try and mumble through an answer. Those who have actually thought about what they want to do will come out and will tell you where they want to go, why they want to go there. So again,
a lot of students, in fact, actually lack that vision, don't they? When you ask them, like you said, they're dumbfounded. Ask them, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? They're scratching their head. They've never been asked that before.
They haven't.
They haven't got that vision. Ask them, okay, where do you see yourself in 10 years' time then? I mean, I've had a few dropouts from university and I've been speaking to them. Okay, where do you see yourself now? Okay, university hasn't worked for you. Where now then? What career path do you have? And that brings me to another question. Does it have to always be university?
No. Nowadays you have so many options, don't you? I mean, even in the legal profession, in the time when I was studying, there was only one route. You had to do the LPC or the BBC, and then you had to qualify through training articles. Then you have to sit through your professional exams. Now there are other routes. You don't have to go to university. You can work. You can do SILEX, which is a legal executive course route. You can work for a number of years. That counts towards your qualification. You then sit your professional exams and pass. In the similar way, you've got apprenticeships now, which are very much prevalent in the commercial world. There are many people who come through apprenticeships. I have friends who've employed apprentices in their law firms. I know people in businesses who've employed apprentices, and just because somebody hasn't gone to university, it doesn't mean that they cannot succeed in what they do. And as I said, I think everybody peaks. Even those people who study will peak at different, levels. I mean, I when I look at myself and how I studied, I really think I peaked when I got to my university. I did not peak at my GCSEs. I did not peak at A levels.
I see.
And I think one of the primary reasons why that happened is I had the teachers that you have make a huge difference. I was lucky, very fortunate. I had some very, very good professors at university, and they were very encouraging. If they taught you something you didn't quite understand, they had 30 other ways of explaining it. They never ever said to you,
So they really became your inspiration.
I think they became a source of inspiration. I think when I saw how passionate they were about teaching, that was their calling. They enjoyed it. They loved it. You could go to them any time in the day, and they would sit there. They would spend their time. And I think that's another art which majority of the teachers like, because they do it because it's a job. As you said, some people get into a profession because the profession has found them rather than them searching for it.
And for some students, this is almost like pressure from home. Whatever it is, you need to have a degree, otherwise you failed our generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much. It's been insisted so much. It's like just under the pressure that he has, he's not being able to perform. You'll find people like that, won't you?
I think again,
and it's a mistake on the parents' part.
It is. I think you're right, especially in the. I'll talk about the subcontinent because more familiar with the
even
culture.
Especially the migrant community.
Yeah.
They feel that quite a lot.
The push is always get to university. You must get A stars in your GCSEs, A stars in your A levels, and you must get first class or at least a 2-1. Anything below that, God forbid.
Or the common
you're
terms
failure.
You're either a doctor, engineer, or a solicitor, lawyer. Otherwise, you're a failure.
Yeah. Again, you're 100% right. I think that
these discussions happen in the community.
Absolutely, and these were the stigmas. I think historically, but I think. As a community, as Indian subcontinent community, I think people have moved on from that now.
Especially those that are the second, third generation now. They're definitely moving away from this only three professions. Otherwise,
I have someone in my family who was studying to be an architect.
Okay.
And never did I think that he would drop out of university. And he's now an electrician, plumber, handyman, and. I have so much love for him because of his personality, amazing personality, beautiful personality. Always, mashallah, has a smile on his face. And just because he doesn't have a degree doesn't really mean that he is any less of a person. He is successful in what he does. And mashallah, as I said, an amazing personality. So I think now, as time has gone, people have moved away. From that again, you will see now. Obviously, we see more and more Asians, getting into politics and getting into finance, into banking sector, in literally everything, in all sorts of jobs now. But the push always was university, a medic. Or an engineer or a lawyer or something along those lines. Anything other than that, it was
there are now
upon.
So many jobs that pay so well.
Yeah.
And they don't require a degree at all.
No.
All it requires is a bit of experience, a bit of common sense, being able to articulate yourself on screen, being able to write some bits, being able to speak a little. And there's so many job opportunities out there.
There are, a friend of mine hired an apprentice a few years ago, and he was 16 years old at the time, I think 16 or 17 years old. It's very young. And he walked into a law firm, had no idea how the legal profession would treat him, had no idea how things would work. And he stayed in that profession for about 5 or 6 years. He's now in his early 20s. He's found a job with an American organization. He works from the UK for the American organization. So he's when it's nighttime here, obviously it's date over there. So his working pattern is completely different. But mashallah, he's earning I think probably £3,000 to £4,000 a month sat at home doing this work, which he never thought he will find.
Started from nothing.
Starting from nothing. Again, he had GCSEs, didn't go to college, didn't have A levels, didn't have nothing from the traditional. But he had a wealth of experience from the 5 years he worked in the law firm.
Okay.
So yes, there are many different routes now available to people, and I think as parents or as family, we should never ever put people down who don't want to go to university. They may not want to. It may not be something that they're good at. They may be good at something else. So we should always encourage people.
I mean, not everyone's going to be an academic. Not everyone's going to be brilliant in education.
Yeah.
And it's been able to really find the talent within him, allow him to express himself. For example, this is why I remember from my GCSE years, the phrase was used quite often in the schools, but not at home. It's like, do what you feel easy, what you enjoy. Whereas traditionally you're told you have to do this only, and this is the only way forward. Whereas when you go to careers advice and stuff, it's like, do what you enjoy. And now, coming away 10 years away from university now, I actually appreciate those words now. Had I taken that really on board, but it's not to be abused as well. I'll give you an example. So when we say do what you enjoy, so a friend of mine really enjoyed art.
Yeah.
So he went into art. Actually, he made nothing out of it. And when he realized this isn't for me at all, it was a hobby, and he was kind of pursuing the hobby based on this comment, do what you enjoy.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to try hard at all.
Yeah.
I mean, you have cases.
I think you should do what you enjoy. Because if you don't enjoy something, I don't think you put the effort in. If you enjoy something, you'll put the effort in, you'll ride the bad times and enjoy the good times. If you don't like something, I think you'll find any excuse, to get out of it. But I think, as families or our support, groups and networks around people, should encourage people to develop the skill sets that they have and what they like, what they excel in. I may have an opinion on what somebody's lifestyle should be or what their direction should be, but that may not be right for them. And again, as families, you get to know a person better, and you should give them the opportunity to express their thinking. And I think, when I look back growing up, we were never, my siblings and I, we were never forced into anything. We were never told that you must do this. My parents' view was, get the education and do whatever you want. It was never that you must become a medic, but get a education and then do whatever you want. So I think the mindsets have changed. People have changed. I also know loads of people here in Manchester who did not have a university education, became very successful, businessmen. So everybody is different.
Speaking of business, we know that the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is tijara, isn't it?
Yes.
It's trading, it's business. Whereas commonly what we see in the community is there's a push for employment.
Yes.
So the university route is primarily pushing towards employment, isn't it? So whether it be in the medical field, especially in the medical field at least, unless you go private and you start your own, then you become you have a lot more freedom. But you're always going to start with that employment route. Whereas the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is to always keep tijara as part of your source of income, and there's lots of barakah in it. And we've discussed this in the previous prior podcast as well. The Prophet ﷺ describing that 9/10 of wealth is in tijara. It's in tijara. It's in trade. It's not in employment.
I think again, people have different mindsets, different personalities, and I suppose the environment they come from has an impact. So, for example, if somebody comes from a family where they had a business but the business did not flourish, they may think this is very risky, and therefore their mindset may be, I'd rather have a 9-to-5 job where I know I'm going to get X amount at the end of the month, and at least I'm secure in that sense.
Yeah.
But I think
it's peace of mind, isn't it?
it's
You don't
peace
have to
of
take
mind.
any business burden
But
at
then
all.
we
Sorry.
know, if you look at it from an objective point of view, nothing in life is for certain. Your employer could get rid of you, the company that you work for could go, bust, and you may lose your employment.
One, two disciplinary reason, that's it.
Yeah,
Game over.
it could be anything. Even forget the discipline. You could be the best employee, but if the company's gone bust, there's not much you can do about that. The mindset, I think, is important. The education of universities, as you've said, I think they depending on where you are and what you do, they don't necessarily create entrepreneurs. You have examples of entrepreneurs who have not had university education, but it's the backgrounds where they've come from. So I suppose everybody is different, but whatever you do, I suppose this is a question for you then, Hafsab, is if somebody is, for example, like myself or any other profession where they offer services. So when you market your services, you offer your services to the public, you charge for those services, is that a form of tijara?
I think there is an element of that. If you look into it, you're providing a service where you've created, an example will be like you're designing websites, and you're providing that service to them. That's you're selling your trade to them, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're buying your effort and your time that you have put into it. Yeah, I think that is.
So the example you gave of the website, so for example, somebody makes the website, that is their product, isn't it? Which they are then selling. And so, yes, I suppose.
You've got accountants that are selling products, you've got bank managers that are selling products, you've got legal firms that are selling products.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people are buying those products. And tijarat is basically the exchange of products, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. It can tie in.
So again, if you go back to the mindsets, some people, for example, as I said, have the mindset of an employee. You may see other people who have seen their parents or elders or anybody else in their extended family who have flourished through businesses. So they may have a mindset, business is the way to go. You will not find them in employment. I think your background and what you've seen around you has a big impact on your thinking.
The type of experiences and exposure you've had really will tailor your mindset and the direction you will take.
Yeah.
And naturally, if you look at it, Allah Rabbul Alameen has divided risk between everyone.
Absolutely.
Not everyone's going to become a doctor. And if everyone become doctors, who will become the lawyers?
Yeah.
If everyone become lawyers, who are going to become the policemen? If everyone become policemen, who's going to do all the let's say the engineering? Who's going to do the plumbing? Who's going to do the roofing or whatever works you got?
Yeah.
So Allah Rabbul Alameen has really divided risk. And it reminds me of a hadith I read in Madarij al-Nubuwah. Sheikh Abdul Haq Muhaddis Dehlawi says that it's not one hadith, it's about 3 hadiths that have been put together in one broad understanding. That Allah Rabbul Alameen has divided rizq, akhlaq and ilm between the public. He'll either give some lots of rizq, but they're deprived of akhlaq and they don't have ilm. On the other side, you have people of knowledge. They've got bags and bags of knowledge, but they don't have the rizq. They suffer in terms of financially, they're going to be weak.
Yeah.
Then you have those who have lost very good akhlaq, a bit of rizq, a bit of ilm, and very good akhlaq. All 3 have been divided between the community.
Yeah.
And that's how the community runs, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes, it's a very rare you get a jack of all trades who has all of those in abundance. It's very rare. The true people of Allah who probably have all of those in abundance. But no, you're absolutely right. It's
and then it's what you consider to be your rizq. You can have very little and be so content with that rizq that Allah has given you. That's making, even that small amount, it gives you joy just like a millionaire, like a billionaire. On the other end, you've got a millionaire who's got millions, but he still feels, I haven't got enough rizq. I've not got enough of it.
I think it's contentment, isn't it? You come back to, you consider, I think the penny drops eventually to, with some people. I think many years ago, the penny dropped in my head that rizq is in Allah's hands.
Right.
Allah will control that, rizq. The only thing which is important for us is to make the effort, and you make the effort with sincerity. You try and do things with the utmost sincerity. You try and work as hard as possible, but there has to be a balance as well. And you have to give your family time. You've got to give your friends time. You've got to give your kids time. You've got to give your wife time. You've got to give your parents the time, your siblings the time. All of these people, the building blocks of your life, you've got to divide your time accordingly. If all you do is work, then everything else will suffer.
I see.
And a lot of the times, it's not necessarily the quantity, but it's the quality.
Yeah.
It's the quality of the time. So even when you're at work, it's the quality of the time you spend in your work. Some people will work maybe 5 hours a day, but those 5 hours are solid 5 hours.
Highly productive.
Very productive. On the other hand, you will see people who work 10, 11, 15 hours a day, but the productivity is not at the same level. Similarly, in relationships, the quality of the time you spend will dictate the quality of that relationship. You have to, therefore, that division of time is not just quantity of the division, but the quality of division. You see people, for example, who may have worked very, very hard all through their day. As soon as they get home, they're tired, they don't want to do anything, don't want to spend time with the kids, don't want to spend time with their family. Who suffers ultimately? It's everybody in the household who will suffer. So I think, again, the penny drops eventually, and many, many years ago, I think the penny dropped in my head as well, that there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance between work, family, and social life. And,
we see that from the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Absolutely. But like I said, I think something has to happen.
Us the time management. He taught us this concept of quality of time. Whatever you do it with presence. You do it to your best effort. It's like the famous narration where the 3 companions came, knocked on the door, asked the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam what is his routine. And one said that, oh yes, he performs his salah, he fasts, and he spends time with us as well. So these companions went back, speaking between themselves. One said, all I'm going to do is fasting every day all my life. Other one said, all I'm going to do is tahajjud every day and all my life.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah, and then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he heard that, he came out fuming.
Yeah.
Hadith says he was red, got onto the mimbar and made a khutbah instantly on the spot and said, look, I'm just like yourself in the sense that I go to my wives and I pray and I sleep as well, and that's how I divide my nights, and I also fast, and I have children as well.
Yeah.
So it's a quality of the time that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam spent in whatever he was doing is what made him so productive.
Absolutely, 100%. I think, again, the penny drops, I think, at some point, and something happens. Something causes the penny to drop. If obviously it's Allah's will, when it happens, how it happens. There's always a bahana of something happening.
It could be someone just who burns out, who's worked so hard for so many years. Then he realizes, बच्चे भी निकल गए हाथ से, पैसा भी निकल गया हाथ से, I've not achieved anything. And that's when he has a penny drop. But by then, unfortunately for some, it may actually be too late.
That's as
and
I
a
said,
lot of the migrant community faces that.
Allah controls that,
Yes.
doesn't it? Hidayah comes at whenever Allah wants, however Allah wants. But if I look at my own life, many years ago, I had a number of trials coming up within space of about 5 weeks.
Okay.
My father was a bit unwell. He needed to travel, and I ended up traveling with my father. And it was, before I traveled and looked at it, I thought, okay, this is a big financial hit. A case comes to a trial, and every trial is worth a significant amount of money, and I'm not representing. And eventually I left, and I remember before leaving, I was thinking, Ya Allah, I'm doing this for the sake of my parents. I leave the rest in your hands. And I left. And I remember we flew to Dubai first. We got to Dubai. I think it was the second day in Dubai, and I got an email from my opposing solicitors on the first trial that was coming up. And Allahu Alam, they sent an email saying, you know, we want a settlement and propose your terms of settlement.
Okay.
So it was that, you know, I was thinking, okay, you know, wow, you know, this was a set thing that we were going to have a trial. And as it happened, we settled the case without going to trial. My client got what he wanted. We achieved a decent outcome out of that financially as well. A few days later, whilst my second trial was coming up to the trial date, again, same thing happened. And it happened in all of those 5 cases, one after the other. And I'm sat there scratching my head thinking, what on earth is going on? How? And as I say, the penny drops. And the penny in my head, the way I understood it was that, you know, Allah made it easy. Why? Because, you know, I did something for the sake of...
You were in the khidmah of your parents. Dekho, walidain ki dua bhi aisi lag jati hai. Absolutely. And it makes the world of a difference. It can change the entire world around.
Absolutely. And I think for me, that year, the penny dropped. And I thought, okay, you know, Allah created those opportunities.
Right.
And everything worked out better than I could ever have hoped for at the time. And I still managed to be away with my parents. And I think we were away for 8 weeks at the time. And then I think after that, I thought, okay, you know what? My outlook on life was completely wrong. And I started to reevaluate everything. Now...
in all of this, just add a little pinch. Dua of parents and your success in your professional career.
Big.
Big.
So when I have a trial, if I have a
because
trial...
a lot of youngsters will actually bypass the parents. And it's almost like I'm achieving through my efforts and my hard work, my mental capacity and my time that I'm putting in and my expertise and my skill set. And it's all about me. It's always about me and me.
I think look, the hard work, the effort, all has to be there. But, you know, you look for the cherry on the cake, don't you? I think the cherry on the cake has to be...
The ultimate acceptance, you know, where you have those hurdles in life, so many of them will, Allah Rabbul Alameen remove them just by one dua of a parent, of a mother, of a father. Because walidain ki dua, as the hadith says, there is no veil between the arsh of Allah and the lips of the mother and the father. Instant acceptance.
SubhanAllah. I believe that to be very, very true. And I think every time I have a trial, which I think is very difficult, and I think, you know, this is going to be a big fight, you know, this is going to be a heavyweight fight. And before I get to the trial, I will ask my parents. I will say to them, "Oh, I've got something going on, some big case going on or something. Make dua that Allah makes it easy," and they will. And you know, I always find it becomes easier. So
as easy as that,
yeah, it becomes easier. And you know, I have tried it time and time again. It's tried and tested for me.
Buzurgon ki dua obviously goes a long way.
You know, you were saying about a routine and habit. There is you know, something else on productivity. When I have trials, we usually have to get to court for about 9 o'clock in the morning. The trials will start by 10, sometimes a bit early, but around about 10 on average. So to get to court at 9 o'clock, I have to leave my home an hour and a half before, because it's always rush hour, mad traffic. Now, if I'm going to get there for 9, that means I'm leaving home at about 7:30.
Okay.
To leave home at 7:30, I have to be up at 6:30, an hour before at least. What I note is that every time I get up at 6:30 early morning, my day is a lot more productive. Early start, your mind is fresh, you're much more focused, you achieve a lot more. And again, it comes back to that habit, habitual things you get into. You'll find generally people who have managed to achieve something, whether that is in Deen or Dunya, are people who are early risers.
Deen and Dunya both.
Absolutely.
Okay, you've touched on something there now.
Yeah, on purpose. People who generally wake up late or will stay in bed late will generally be stuck in a rut. They usually, generally speaking, and in general terms, illa mashallah koi ek aadh to hoga na jo who's an exception, but generally speaking, they fail to achieve their potential.
ऐसा ही the morning time, बल्कि हदीस में यूँ आता है कि मेरी उम्मत के लिए बरकत फजर के वक्त में रखी गई है. All the blessings for my ummah has been placed in the fajr time. So fajr nowadays is what? So make the exemption for Ramadan, of course, because we make suhoor and go to sleep. But throughout the year, majority of us would be up for fajr salah.
Yeah.
Fajr salah on average is coming to about 6 o'clock anyway, between 5 and 6. Imagine somebody to be up at that time. And then when you look at, I remember, you have those motivation videos on YouTube and stuff like that. And somebody was describing that all the successful people, millionaires and billionaires, they're up at 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
They're up before the whole community. And those that invest in Walmart and stuff, before the community sees what's happening on there, they've already worked 4 hours before that.
Absolutely.
You're 4 hours ahead of the entire community.
Yeah.
Become so much productive.
And the other,
and
again,
when you mention the Deen and Dunya, or Deen, maybe those people are most successful who wake up before Fajr. Those that actually wake up for Tahajjud. And the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as he's smiling now, because the first sermon of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the community of Medina was what? Afshu salam, wa atimu ta'am, wasilul arham, sallu bil layl wa nasu nayam, tadkhulul jannata bisalam. He said greetings, food, give each other food, give each other greetings, and then make family ties. And then point 4 is sallu bil layl, perform salah in the nights when nasu bin niyam, when people are sleeping. And what's the result of that? Tadkhulul jannata bisalam. You'll enter paradise with peace as well.
With peace.
But wake up for tahajjud. Tahajjud is so powerful, but it's a lost sunnah at the moment, isn't it?
It is. Again, I think people think that they need 8 hours sleep or 7 hours sleep. You'll see people say, I need 9 hours sleep. If I don't get 9 hours sleep, I can't function. Again, I've tried routines. I've on purpose tried different routines, and I find the most successful routine is 5 to 5.5 hours sleep. Any more than that, you become more lethargic. You go through a cycle of 5 hours or 5.5 hours, no more. You'll find once you get into the routine of it, within 7 days, 10 days, you'll find that you are mentally more alert. You'll get more done. You'll actually eat less, and you'll sleep. And that, the more you eat, the more tired and lethargic you become.
And the more sleep you require.
The more sleep you need. So it becomes a vicious, cycle. That 5.5 hour, cycle of sleep, and if you're eating, less as well during the day, you'll drink more. Automatically, you'll drink more. Your body will require more water. And I find that routine actually sits really, really, really well with me.
How early can somebody start getting into these routines? So let's suppose a university student. Is it practical for him to do it at that age? Or is it something you've only tried after uni and after all of those career changes and everything, and now, once the white hair start coming through and now you start practicing all the Babaji practices, is it practical for the youngsters?
So when I was studying, I had some friends who would get up early.
Okay.
They were early risers. So they would do their revision, their homework and everything else really early.
Early, okay.
At that time, I used to think working through the night works better for me than rising up early. And I did that through my, I think, up to my college, I did that. At university, I changed my routine. And if you remember, I said to you, I think I peaked academically at university. And the routine changed at university. I would get up early in the morning, and then I would try and get to sleep early as well. And I say try because in university you think, okay, I only need 3-4 hours and I'll be fine, and I probably was fine at the time, but as you get a bit older, you do need at least 5 hours sleep.
Okay.
But I think this is more with experience. Some people find at a very early age, they find a routine which works for them.
Sorry.
And if they find it, alhamdulillah. But as I said, I on purpose tried different routines to see what suits me. So I think, it's more with grey hair and experience rather than at an early age. You learn a lot about yourself. And I think whatever you do, you have to pay attention to yourself. You have to pay attention to a certain points in your life. Your body will tell you what you need, and you should pay attention to that.
I think we've still not got into challenges that you will face once you start work, which is something I wanted to discuss. For example, you have the gender interaction, which many of the youngsters will suffer with. They'll end up making mistakes. You're put in an office environment where it's just you and a girl, and you sat together in that closed office. You're spending several hours together. The fitna that could arise from that. Then you have students. So in working in the professional fields and out there in the West has its challenges, because let's say you go to a meeting and straight up first thing you got to do is you got to shake everyone's hand as a normal practice. Any advice on that for teenagers?
I think it's again is different for everyone. I think whatever you feel comfortable in, you don't necessarily have to go and shake hands with everybody. You can walk into a room and say hello, and just as you walk into a room and you say assalamu alaikum to everyone, and everybody knows that you've said it to everyone, you can do that. I don't think that's necessarily an issue.
I've had a few brothers that have been contacting me quite recently, and they feel quite strongly about this. And it's like also paranoia for them now, going to work knowing that I'm going to end up in a situation where, let's suppose you've got a manager, a female manager. The manager is always going to be, hand comes out.
Not necessarily. I have to say, I think I have not experienced anybody who has come out and said, put their hand out and you have to shake their hand. I don't think that's a regular occurrence. I don't think it's a usual occurrence. I think especially post-COVID, people are careful shaking hands with others. But I think it's different in terms of the question you asked about interaction with the opposite sex, etc. I think that comes down to istiqamah. You have to, I think, again, you learn from experience, you learn from your own life, you learn from everything that's around you, the environment, etc. Everything has an impact. The istiqamah, I think, comes from, first of all, a recognition of you, who you are and yourself. That recognition, I think, materializes in your own understanding of who you are and what your needs are and how you're going to meet those. And I think it's, if you understand yourself, you understand your strengths and your weaknesses, wherever your weaknesses are, if you have that understanding, you will avoid certain situations.
But this requires a level of awareness.
Yes.
Some are not even aware that this is my weakness, and they're just getting themselves into those situations. But
this is where I think the tarbiyah, the sohbah of people come in. We talk about education, we talk about whether that is universities, colleges, or whether it is within a religious surrounding. The sohbah of your ustads is a big thing. You could get a lot of ilm, but if you haven't digested it, you haven't sat with your ustad to understand,
and you haven't experienced that ilm that you've
absolutely
taken in.
Absolutely. So all of these things play a part. So for example, look, if you find someone who has gone to, and it works, I suppose you have positives and negatives in both. I went to a school which was a mixed school. it got to a point, for me, I came from Pakistan. It was a big culture shock to be in a mixed school. It took me.
What's the story behind that? You're born here, but your childhood is in Pakistan, and then you come back. What?
So I was about 4 months old. My grandfather fell ill.
Okay.
And my father used to be an electronic engineer here at the time, and he was working at the time. And because it was myself and my older brother, who was about a year and a half older than me, my father quit his profession and moved to Pakistan to look after his parents, his mother and father. Okay. Which is why my childhood is all in Pakistan. I think I was about 12 when we came back, and carried on the rest of sort of studying from here. So in a way, we were very fortunate. We got the best of both worlds.
That traditional grounding came in because of those 12 years you spent there.
Yeah. So even though when we came here, as I said, it was a huge blow, a shock to the system that you're in a mixed environment. In Pakistan, it was never the case.
And this is going back, a good 30 years? 40 years?
Yes, it was 1990 to be exact. It's the summer of 1990 when we moved back here. And I started in September 1990 in high school. Okay. And I was 12 years old at the time. And it was a big shock to the system. It took me a while to get used to it. But again, it got to a point where it's now normal to be in a mixed environment. But the boundaries that you create or are created for you, I think that is, a lot of that happens from the home. A lot of that happens from the tarbiyah you get at home. And then the religious education you get. And I think you start to form your boundaries. Right. And if you find good friends around you, that's a blessing. You can't always find good people around you, but if you find good friends around you.
No, it reminds me of the dua for Yusuf alayhi salam. So when he's in the cells, he's making dua, رَبَّنَا أَدْخِلْنَا بِرَحْمَتِكَ فِي عِبَادِكَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Subhanallah. Allah, wherever you're sending me, send me amongst those people who are your men, who are slaves, your slaves, Salihin. And this is a Nabi of Allah making a dua for good company.
Subhanallah.
And then we know the hadith that your community makes who you are. Al-mar'u ala dini khalil. A man is on the religion of his friends.
Beshak. And it's translated into Urdu. Used to hear when we were growing up, kharbuza ko dekh ke rang pakadta hai. That's what they say, don't they? And you are the company that you keep. So I think that's a blessing if you get good friends. I was very fortunate at university. I had some very, very good friends. I was very fortunate at college. I had good friends. I was fortunate at school. I had good friends. And when I moved into the work environment, I think for me the biggest challenge was keeping wudu, or making wudu in workplace, having the facilities in place. That was a big challenge for me. Again, I was very fortunate. I was working with someone who was a 5-time namazi, and he was my boss at the time, and we became very good friends. We're still friends to this day. I think I haven't spoken to him for a number of years, but when we do speak, we'll carry on exactly from where we left off. And that made life easier.
The relationship of Iman actually did really trigger. You're able to click, like they would say, with that person much faster.
Much quicker, yeah. And again, I was fortunate. I had friends who were practicing, and I think that made things a lot easier for me. And you get tested. Everybody's going to get tested in different ways. You could be tested with wealth. You could be tested with health. You could be tested with, there are a few things in life that you can be.
I mean, friends is a very big one.
Friends is a big one.
Very big one.
And it's just, I think having that group around you, which is, I always used to say, friends are your safety net. Your family is your safety net. You should never cut away yourself from your friends or your family to an extent where they don't know what's happening in your life. One of the other lost arts, I think, in that is that in this day and age, we tend not to sit together and eat as a family. I remember growing up, we would always have one meal a day together, which was usually a night with parents. And that was the discussion table where everybody would find out what everybody else was up to and what they were doing. And you always knew what was going on in everybody else's life. So now that doesn't happen. You know, I remember if we were hungry and we said, oh, you know, Abu's not at home, I don't want to eat, our mother will say, well, you know, you're just going to have to wait. And you would wait until he came home and then the table set and you will say. Now, whenever somebody's hungry, it's the impatience. You know, I can't wait, I have to have it now.
Just eat. Uber.
Yeah. Uber Eats. And it's all of those things, I think.
It's breaking you away from that unit, family unit.
Yeah.
And we get actually a glimpse of that in the month of Ramadan.
Yes.
So jab iftar ka mauka aata hai, the whole family is actually together. You actually see people on a table after a year. Suhoor in the same manner. Everyone's going to be there. Everyone's going to be eating together. And it's a lost practice. हमारे बुजुर्गों का ये बड़ा पुख्ता एक तरीका रहा है हमेशा से. I know till today Walid Sahab in our home keeps this up. So in the evening, once we're done with our teaching, massages and everything, we then all get together. Walid Sahab comes home and we're going to come home with him. And it's all of us are going to be eating together. Even if it's a bit late, 9, past 9, even 10 o'clock, but we're going to eat together.
So the other thing is, look, even if you've had something before, the fact that you sat together, even if you're having a very small portion, is being in the company of each other, spending time with each other, is the quality of time, isn't it? It's not the quantity, it's the quality of time. And I think it's something which families have moved away from. Every child comes from school, they will eat, they will want to go to bed, obviously to get up early for school, but as parents, then we should make the effort to get home before it's bedtime for the children so we can have dinner with them. And it's give and take in these relationships.
आजकल तेज तरीका तो ये है कि turn the Wi-Fi off, everyone will come down.
Something's wrong.
They'll all come down. But Chali Jahmabe, thank you very much. Let's break on that light note, because Admin's telling me it's just coming to about an hour. Inshallah, it's been wonderful to have you here. I'll be inviting you again. Are you going to be sitting at the calf this year?
I'm going to try my best, inshallah.
You're going to try. If you don't sit in the calf, then you're going to be here at least.
Inshallah.
I'll be keeping you busy.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.